gonna get to know you. We're gonna talk it out. We're gonna get to know you and what you're all about. We're gonna get to know just what makes you feel alive. We're gonna get to know how you build, lead, and thrive. Build, lead, and thrive. Voices of the Androscoggin.
Welcome to Build, Lead, Thrive, Voices of Androscoggin, a bi-monthly podcast that features in-depth conversations with the people shaping Androscoggin County. Each episode dives into personal stories, showcasing the leaders and entrepreneurs behind the region's economic and community vitality. I'm your host, Shanna Cox, President and CEO of the LA Metro Chamber. Hello. I'm joined by local talent, longtime friend, and our producer, Mark Turcotte.
Hello.
Welcome back.
How are you?
I'm so good.
Me too.
I'm so good. We're recording this on negative 12 day, so hopefully you're listening to it and we've broken the 0 degree barrier.
That's the only thing I don't like about Maine in the winter. I wish it was colder.
Oh,
you know?
You heard people are going to boycott us. We're not aligned on that one, folks. We're not aligned on that one. I don't mind winter, and I love a good cold stretch, and I love snow. I actually really enjoyed the snow that we just got, particularly the fluffy diamond in the snow, sparkly kind, which was nice. But I don't like it when my nose sticks together when I go outside.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it burns.
Yes, it
makes your eyes water.
Absolutely, and it literally takes your breath away. That's the cold snap that we're in the middle of. So I'm with you until I'm not, Mr. Turcotte.
Okay, gotcha.
Just for the record.
Just for the record,
Yeah.
I hate the cold.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not a fan of winter at all.
Lies then. I appreciate that. Together, Mark and I are highlighting the leaders and entrepreneurs building a stronger economy and vibrant community right here in our region, sharing stories of how they build, lead, and thrive. So today's conversation is about financial access, community leadership, and what it looks like when values drive growth. We're joined by Jen Hogan, the president and CEO of Community Credit Union, and Betsy Sibley, chief marketing officer at Community Credit Union. Hello, ladies. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Thanks for being here. We've got lots of fun to dive into today. I'm going to share a little bit more about you with our guests. Then we'll get to know you before we dive in. Promise. Here's just a little bit more. Jen's been with CCU, Community Credit Union, since 2007 and has served as president and CEO since 2016. She's deeply rooted in the philosophy of people helping people and serves our region in many different leadership roles, including chair of the Community Credit Union Foundation, board member at the YWCA and the Maine Credit Union League, and as a committee member on our business advocacy committee and a past chair of the Chamber's board. Did I miss any? Because I feel like that's nowhere near.
It was the CM Foundation.
I was going to say, I just came off the Central Maine Community College, try not to just use acronyms, Central Maine Community College Foundations Board, where you are chair currently.
I am, yes.
Did I miss more?
Did you have the YWCA on there?
Yeah.
The YWCA board. Yeah, you did. Yeah. I'm involved in a lot of different
Yes,
things.
ma'am. I knew that it wouldn't be a checklist. I'd be able to nail it all down with.
It's all good.
I feel like that's a trend with you folks at CCU because Betsy, she joined Community Credit Union in 2012. She currently serves as Chief Marketing Officer, wrapping up your service, which is ironic because she's still got a full year of duty, as the past chair at the LA Metro Chamber. And beyond that, you're deeply involved in community life, from co-chairing the Ending Hunger Committee with CCU. You're the reason I see all of those amazing soup posts every time there's a soup challenge.
Ready to launch in February.
Great, because I'm ready for another round of soup. Statewide advocacy through the Maine Credit Union League, and then hands-on volunteer work. And this is some of my favorite stories that I've gotten to hear you tell over the years. The Turner Ridge Riders, which is a snowmobile club that does some cool stuff, not just in the winter when the snowmobiles are out on the trails, but you do stuff during 4th of July and year round. And
Yeah, one time we had the big snowmobile groomer drove down through in the 4th of July parade.
See?
So, yeah.
I love that. And that didn't round it out. Lewiston's Transformation Action Group, or TAG as we call it locally. And we just have local student athletics. You're a sports mom. And that is such those 3 words sum up 20 hours of your life, depending on the season.
Depends on the season, yes.
Anything I missed from your accolades?
Spend a lot of time outdoors in this single digit weather. So
Do you have a cross country skier, a Nordic skier?
I do.
So if you're not on the trails on a snowmobile, you're
I'm chasing him on my snowshoes, which I can't keep up, but I go to the right intersections of the race so I can cheer my cowbells and stuff when they go by and then go to the next one. So
I can't. So I had a track kid, and they did it the nice way. They did it in like one spot where I could keep track of them. We didn't do the cross country stuff. I don't know how. It was hard enough keeping up with like outdoor track and the difference. I can't imagine a multi-mile course of trying to follow my kid around. I don't know how you do that.
I wouldn't do it in the winter.
Yeah, that's my point.
I'd like to
I'm
be
with
inside
Jen.
by the fireplace.
Yeah.
I was a basketball player, so I thought gym rat, all the things.
That's a winter sport.
Stay in my lane, but that's not what my kids
No,
did.
kids
So,
decide
yeah,
for
they
us.
do. They do.
I never would have pegged myself as a football mom, and I miss it desperately now
And
that my
that's a
kids are
cold
out of
sport,
school.
too.
It is. We always like to start with a little segment that we call Getting to Know You. Some quick hitting questions, if you will.
All right.
Ladies, morning person or night owl?
Ooh, I'm a night
Morning.
owl.
I'm definitely morning.
I have seen this from both of you, having both been chairs of my board at different times. Time stamped that one.
Yes,
I knew
I'm
the
a, like
answer.
11 p.m., 12.
You hit a
midnight,
stride.
1 a.m. That's my stride. I
You're
love it.
so good.
Yeah.
You
I've been
pump
sleeping
out.
for 3 hours.
I know.
At that point.
I know. But you, I get stuff like on point at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I try to wait till at least 5:30, 6 o'clock.
You'll
before
never
I
see
email
that from
people.
me.
No.
No.
I.
Unless I'm still up from the night before.
Well, and what a team you make, right? You're covering a
We are a good
24-hour
team.
clock.
That's right.
We got this.
What is your drink that you drink throughout the day? Are you tea, coffee, and energy drink? I don't know. What gets you through your day for hydration?
I do flavored water.
Is that what's in the cup
It
currently?
is. It's grape flavored water
Nice.
with ice.
It might have been, where was I? Nope. I was at a different office of a member. They have an ice maker in their office. Like in their physical, they have like a little shelf ice maker. And I was like, I appreciate your commitment to cold drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't like ice in anything except for this.
Oh.
Yeah. But I don't like plain water. That's just, there's no taste to it. So it's got to be flavored.
That's my drink of choice.
Yeah.
Plain water. Plain Jane right over here.
That and I
Can be warm,
coffee.
can be hot, can be cold.
Yes.
Don't put tea in it. Gross. You know?
I do like to have at least one soda a day, though. Just, 12 ounces of Pepsi or Dr. Pepper or something like that.
Dark and bubbly.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
This question is one that we like occasionally bring into the repertoire. Knowing you both, I'm excited to hear your answer to this one.
Ooh, I'm scared.
What is one small habit that helps you reset when work gets intense? I have seen both of you work through intense phases, whole seasons of intensity. I watched you guys do incredible things during the pandemic. I've seen you pivot and really sustain during some like stretches of intense work. And you both are mothers and incredible women and incredible organizational and community leaders. And I know that you haven't held all that without finding a little bit of space or reset to sustain. So like, what's the trick? What works?
You want first or second?
I'll go second.
I would say movement breaks. That's important for me. So, I mean, best is like go to the beach, walk it out miles and miles and miles when it's beautiful. Maine has so many great places, but I walk in the mountains too, and I snowshoe in the yard. I have woods out back that I can venture to. If trapped indoors, negative 25-degree days.
Yeah.
I have a treadmill that I loathe using, but I can use it to break out of that. But I'm a reader and a writer as well, so I will pull out and just write and do something that's non-work, or a cheesy romance novel is also a great solution.
Just a little bit of escapism.
yeah.
With
Just be like, how do I get this life?
same. That it's the fourth thing I try, but it is also the most reliable.
Yes.
My answer is very different, which Betsy and I are very much alike in many ways. But so I was born in the 80s. So for me, it's all about music. I have a nice 20-minute drive to the office, home from the office. So normally I've got my T-Swift going, just kind of on a shuffle. But when I really need to reset, I break out the 90s hip hop.
That's okay.
Tupac,
Top
Snoop
two, yep,
Dogg,
yep.
Dr. Dre,
Yes. Warren G.
True 90s, yep.
Little regulators action
Yeah.
in there, a little Montel. Thank you.
Mount up.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
not
what
just me.
really resets me. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I grew up with for music.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm in that
It
mood,
transports
like,
you.
yeah, it just kind of gets me to a different place and resets me. And
Mark has had to bear
Music.
witness to me singing Lottie Dottie at least once, and
I have it recorded.
it's out there in the world.
Makes a
haunting
great
me.
ringtone.
But like 90s hip hop is, and like for the record, I have an Aretha Franklin playlist. I have an Al Green. I have a Johnny Cash. Like I love the classics and the greats, but nothing gets the house clean or your
Yep.
mind like detached quite like 90s hip
yeah,
hop.
well, you can even go to like some TLC and Salt and Pepper. You know, I mean, you can mix it up, but like it's definitely in that 90s era.
You'll never find me on a treadmill. I feel like that's obvious, but I respect that.
I
want
started
that.
last year doing better of getting my steps in, but like it still doesn't reset me like 90s hip hop.
Yeah. I love that for you, though, Betsy. It's like, I
love
would
it for
love
you,
that
too.
for me, too. It's just I haven't been able to achieve it.
Just an outdoors person. So like it's something that's connected there.
Well, so I will take my like short version of that because I love like camping is my long answer. If I can like actually get away and just if I know it's like 3 months of really extenuating, like we've got staff transitions and it's going to be lean for a bit and you're going to be working long hours for a while. A camping trip is like my favorite way. But if all else fails and I'm in that place where you're like, you get 30 minutes and you're going to try to just harvest as much reset as you can from 30 minutes, I take my shoes off and I stand in my garden.
Oh, I do enjoy my gardening.
You do. I was
Yes.
curious.
Yes, and we bought a house, I don't know, 7 years ago now. And
Ridiculous
before that,
gardens.
like I knew nothing about gardening, and now I love it. I'm always digging up and moving things around,
Yeah.
and that was the gift that the chamber board got me when I left. You guys bought me some. You gave me a gift card, and I purchased bushes
Yeah.
to help round out the gardening in my house.
See?
But I do love it.
Good answers.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. All of it. Also, I'm going to have to go blare some 90s hip hop on the way. you just like created an itch I'm going to have to scratch later. Our first segment's build. Community Credit Union has grown in some really intentional ways over the past several years, decade more, especially around serving people who have historically been left out of traditional financial systems. So, perhaps for Jen, but either of you can answer or both. When you think about building at CCU, what does that really mean beyond like buildings or balance sheets? Like how have you been doing it and how you think about building?
Yeah,
show up?
I think it's a great question. I think Betsy's dad was a builder, and so sometimes she corrects me how I tape measure stuff. So I'm definitely not a builder, and I don't come from the finance side. My background is in marketing, and so for me, when I look at how do we build as community credit union, it's really about community, and that's been I guess instilled in me since my early radio days. I worked for Dick Gleason. I started working in the community in 2003, I think it was. And
When you were 12, right?
when I was 12, yeah. And Dick Gleason had said, if you're going to work for me, you have to be involved in the community. And it can be anything you want it to be, but you have to be involved. And I probably took that to an extreme because I got involved in a lot of things. And so I think when we think about building at Community Credit Union, it's about being invested in our communities, sitting at tables, being a part of organizations, being a part of conversations to truly understand at the ground level what the needs are. Yeah. And then we take those conversations and bring them back to the credit union to talk about, okay, here are the things that are happening in the community. What can Community Credit Union do to be a part of, making this a better place?
I've witnessed that from you guys, like from both of you, from other staff, from CCU, like as a philosophy. I will say, having been involved in this region and in different tables where these conversations have happened over the years, where you guys are also at, and then having been at other tables where similar conversations are happening, a lot of people just come in and like full launch on what they think a community needs. They kind of skip that step of like really deeply listening or really engaging to understand. And it's just a hallmark of what you guys do, how you show up. I would say, to be really explicit, it's a hallmark of your leadership, Jen. Yeah, because, when your staff feels empowered to do that, when you see them in these community spaces, in these initiatives, and they're bringing that to the table, there's a culture behind that. That's not just like what you're doing, right? Like that's a culture that you're creating. And that's just something I've seen with such consistency from everyone on your team for years. And it's really nice to hear you describe it so kind of explicitly.
Yeah, I don't know if Betsy would describe it differently, but
No, I think I would definitely describe it similarly. I think it's the building of relationships that is really a hallmark, and like you said, Shanna, it's about being genuine and wanting to know what we can do to help, because we're the helpers. And so we want to present whatever resources we have to help whatever the challenge is that people are facing. And we don't pretend to know what all the challenges are. I think we see a fair amount, and like our staff brings them to us, our members bring it to us, our community partners bring it. But I think we have a relationship, and we have that ability to listen. And if there's a way that we can provide a resource or a solution or a partnership or hold your hand through you go through that challenging moment, then that's, we're hiring people that want to be that.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a testament to the culture and leadership that Jen's presented.
I would just call out the difference between like helpers and fixers. And you just really described that so well. But there's so many places I come where folks come in and are like, we're here to fix things. And there's just such a fundamental difference in that approach versus helping, right? And some of that comes, I would say, from like the notion of empowerment and partnership instead of like doing to you, doing for you. There's this notion of doing with you that I think that you guys embody. And I don't know how many of our listeners are like, financial experts. And what I love about you guys is you've always done a really good job empowering your membership, because you're a credit union. So like banking customers are actually members of your institution. Some folks might or might not know that, might even be members and not realize it. You guys do a great job communicating that. But as you've introduced new financial products and programs, I've watched that, like the identification of what those programs are, come from these conversations and be a real, like, concrete example of how you help. And it's not anywhere near the only way that you help, right? There's your Bridges Out of Poverty work, and there's so many other things that you do. But there are some things that are like, hey, we see a solution that is like a financial product need, and you create it, and then you describe it to people. And that's like your bailiwick with marketing, Betsy. Is there one or two things that you can kind of describe to like a normal layperson that you've created, and maybe where it came from, in terms of like what was described as the need, how you were kind of called in to help, and how that product did it? But like, I don't know, give us the marketing angle first, and then back us into like the story behind it.
Yeah, I'll try that. Probably the easiest, hardest product to describe is credit builder loans.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people that assume that everybody knows everything there is to know about credit, but there's a lot of mystery to it. There's a lot of numbers and calculations and different pieces. But, we saw a need for folks to establish credit. And in the nature of today's economics, there was a lot of barriers. And so creating a 0% credit builder loan product allowed us to serve folks that can't have interest, because it's 0%.
Yeah.
Also, it helped us with folks that want to establish credit, but they are living in a tough economic situation. And so not having interest piling up on top of, and a credit builder loan is essentially you're paying in and it's going into a savings account. So in some descriptions, you might think of it as a forced savings account, but you're establishing that credit. It's going to report to credit bureaus. So you're picking an amount that you can do and then forcing it into that account until it's paid off. And then you have a paid off loan. And so I just think that it's seeing that folks are struggling to establish credit and then developing a way to take some of those barriers down. And that was really kind of how that 0% credit builder. Obviously, if you look at us and we talk balance sheets and things like that, this is not a profitable product. There is no money.
Y'all aren't getting rich in this, huh?
There is no money to be made on a 0% credit builder. But if you can help somebody take those steps to financial wellness and establishing themselves in the economic mainstream so that they can, move on to the next loan or the next step in their financial goals, then ultimately ultimately that's serving our mission to move people forward. And a lot of times it's rewarded with loyalty. And so those folks that were like, well, you helped me learn to pay my bills on time, and you gave me a chance to do that the first time. Now, I want to come back to you because you're my trusted place to get financial guidance. And what's my next step? And we can guide them to the next step. So
I'd love to hear you guys talk a little bit about homeownership as a pathway to stability and some of what you guys have heard and done in the homeownership space. I know for me, homeownership absolutely helped me break generational poverty cycle. Like heart stop. There's a million things that I've done over the years to like better my financial well-being and overall situation. And none of them were as bottom line impactful as homeownership. And I know that's just out of reach, particularly right now for so many people, and that you guys have been active in this space. So talk a little bit about, I don't know what you're doing and what that means to you guys.
You want to pick that up first? Because you've done a lot of the groundwork and education components.
Well, I'll talk about some of the partnerships and like the education piece, and then I'll let you talk a little bit more about products and things so we were approached by a community partner a year or so ago, Healthy Homeworks, and they were doing some grassroots home ownership training, and they were having a hard time filling their classes with qualified borrowers, because they were offering a really great educational opportunity. But folks would get into their class and complete it, and they're like, I'm ready, I want a house. And they didn't have any credit, any financial history, any organization of their finances. And so there was a disconnect there. And then folks were really frustrated because they're like, so I just took this class and now I have like 2 or 3 years of financial work to do ahead of me. And so they were really frustrated. And so we helped them kind of close that loop. So they, in partnership, we are doing kind of low barrier lunch and learn information sessions where residents of the area or employees of local employers can come and listen on a quick 30, 40-minute session about why you might aspire to home ownership and why you shouldn't tell yourself you can't do it, because with a few steps and a few supports, you too can get there. And so we're funneling people through and like talking about like, you can do this too. It's tough. The housing market is tough and all of the, the current economic situation, but we want to be helpful and tell you that this can be done. And so they complete that. And if they decide, I want to move forward, we offer like a 90-minute workshop, and it really focuses on credit and organizing your finances. So this is looking at your credit report for the first time and like, what does that look like? What is a credit report? How do you get one?
What's on it?
How did this get here? Like those types of things, and like organizing yourself. Have you been paying rent for the last 5 years? Do you have a great record for that? Should you be leveraging that? Should you be keeping track of that? When you show up to a bank and say, I would love to get pre-approved so I can go to my realtor, what are they going to say to you? What are they going to ask you? Like, give you the preparation that you need so you can show up informed and empowered for those situations. And then once they kind of know where their finances are and where their next steps are, then they're better prepared to go through kind of that hands-on 12-hour workshop. And that is now unlocking doors for like grants for down payment assistance or first-time home buyers or first-generation homeowners and those types of things. And so it's really given people a pathway that maybe didn't have one or didn't know. They were doing a class over here and they were getting a resource over here and they did something online. And so this is just making sure that we're being really intentional. And there's lots of other opportunities. So if somebody doesn't want to go through kind of the CCU and Healthy Homeworks path, there's Homeworks, there's CCI, there's lots of other partners, and we can help people find the one that fits their schedule and fits their life. And, we're seeing great results. So, we don't always hear when somebody gets to the next step and like, hey, I got to the realtor step this week, or hey, I made my first payment, or those types of things. But we're seeing people that are seeing on the horizon this opportunity, and they're feeling empowered each step of the way, and that's really important.
And you've done Sharia compliant home loans too. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yes. So we, we're a small credit union, so we do partner with an organization that allows us to offer all the same mortgage products that any other financial institution can. So you can do rural development, first-time home buyers, all of those types of things. But through listening sessions and having conversations, actually in a prior life of yours when you were doing consulting.
I remember the conception moment.
Yeah, you worked through some of this with us, and we were pulling individuals together from our immigrant community and really asking them, what do you need in a financial institution? What are the things that you're focused on? What are your goals? And one of those things was home ownership, and what we really discovered through some of those conversations, that it wasn't a simple path for our Muslim American community that doesn't allow them to benefit from receiving interest or paying interest on loans. And so it's been probably a 10+ year journey for us as an organization to really go through this process and understanding what Sharia compliance is, and trying to do it on our own, and realizing after many years that we can't do it on our own, at least not doing it the right way where it truly would honor somebody's values and their culture. So finally went to the community and said, okay, so we can't do this on our own. Who else can do this? And so we started talking to different nonprofit organizations like CEI, who does it on like a business basis. And they were like, here, just use this paperwork. Well, we can't use this paperwork because we have regulations we have to follow. And so finally, we said, I think what we need to do is we need to find some of these national organizations across the country that are doing this and just bring them to Maine. And so we started having conversations with some of those organizations, went to the Muslim American community and said, if we were to bring an organization to Maine, who do you want it to be? And they had said, there's this company, Guidance Residential. So we went out and found a way to reach them. And they said, we don't want to come to Maine. We don't, there's not enough business in Maine for us to really have boots on the ground. But you guys are a credit union and you're different. And we really, like the approach that you've had with this and how long you've really spent trying to figure this issue out. We'd like to work with you to see if you can offer our product in Maine, even though we won't be there. And so we've been able to work with them over the last 2.5, 3 years, I think it's been, to essentially resell their program. So individuals, I'm going to say from the Muslim American community, but anybody is eligible to access this product. So it's not, just for, you don't have to come in and say, yes, I'm Muslim and I want to access this product. Anybody can access this. It's broken down the same way that a traditional mortgage is, except for interest, you're paying usage fees. And so if you're not familiar with Sharia compliance, you can't pay interest, but you can pay fees for service.
Yeah.
And so it essentially just kind of flips that and breaks the mortgage payment down differently. But it's allowing people in our community who never had the opportunity to be homeowners to realize, that American dream, if that is in fact their American dream. So it's really cool. It's really exciting. Yeah. It's been a very long process. We've had a few people go through the process. We have not closed any contracts yet, but we have a few people that are out shopping for their homes. And as Betsy kind of alluded to, the market is challenging.
It's a hard market to buy in.
So I think that's the challenge that we're running into, is we've gotten a few people through the approval process, and now they just have to find that home that is theirs.
Exciting.
And then we'll be able to kind of get them moving forward. So it's very exciting. So we do the initial application, and then just like you might sell a home on the secondary market, we sell it to Guidance Residential after it's closed, so they can make sure that it remains Sharia compliant for the lifetime of the loan.
That's incredible.
So,
where are they out of?
They are all over the place, but Michigan, Minnesota, DC are kind of their central offices.
That's amazing.
But they operate in like 28 different states.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really great.
I was like working on Sharia compliant lending for home and for business. 2012, 2011. Like, it's been an active conversation, and
it really has.
Yeah, and I'm just so excited you stuck with it, because I know lots of other folks that I was in those conversations with 13 some odd years ago, not currently here at the finish line.
Yeah. Well, and
it took some sticking with itness.
Well, and I think it took, not compromising, but being adaptable to what we originally wanted it to be, because we originally wanted it to be a community credit union program, and it just can't be if we truly want it to honor people's values.
Yeah.
We had to do it differently, and so we had to rely on a third-party partner to make it happen.
Yeah. And you still did.
And we still did.
Hallmark
Thanks.
moments.
It's very exciting.
Let's talk about leading and leadership. In community, leadership's not often about titles. And I know you both personally well enough to know that you also despite the fact that you have titles that extend to leadership, you know that's not always related. Leadership can come from other places, and people with titles can fail to lead. You guys have led in community moments. You have led as individuals in some of those organizations. Jen specifically here, Betsy specifically here. Like, I've witnessed what it means for you to lead in other places outside of your workspace. Many of your partnerships involve organizations with different missions, different funding models, different constraints. You work with so many partners, on the ground partners, other institutional partners, statewide partners, credit union partners, ending hunger partners. I mean, you guys have so many different partnerships. How do you make sense of contributing to and being in shared collaborative collective work and working towards outcomes when you can't control the outcome?
I think I would share that it's a mindset. And so working in collaborative spaces takes a specific mindset. And so a lot of, like you said, ego, titles, some of those things have to be checked as you walk in the room, and you really have to meet people where they're at. And so, especially at a collective table, you don't know. You know what I mean? And you don't really need to know. You know what I mean? If the CEO of each organization's at the table, or if it's their frontline manager, or if it's their greeter. You know what I mean? Because what you need is the voice of whatever the challenge or discussion is going to be on, and make sure that all of those voices are brought so that everybody can kind of start with that collective knowledge of okay, so here's the setting of the challenge, and now, let's do a design challenge. Let's see what the problems are that need to be solved, and which ones can be done by the collective that is in the room. And you can't always come up with, okay, this is the problem we want to solve, but we're missing 6 people. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to go out and get, answers and get folks there. I think communication and transparency are a huge component of it. And obviously listening. There's a lot of collaborative tables that I go to, and I might not say anything other than introducing myself the first 2 or 3 meetings that I go, because I need to hear what we're there for.
Back to that listening that you were talking about earlier. It's a really good point.
Sometimes when I introduce myself, I don't even give my title, and that's intentional. Yeah. I try to do that in staff meetings. I try not to be the first person to speak, because sometimes once the CEO has spoken, the conversation is over and people think the decision has been made. And so, I think what's important is that, you have the right people at the table who have the passion around the conversation, that really want to work towards those solutions. Betsy and I have both been through a program. It's a credit union program. It's called the Development Educator, and it's all about, bringing your community together and focusing on community issues. And when they bring you together in the room, there's 50, 60 people in the room, nobody knows each other, and you're not allowed to share your title. They don't share titles until the last day of the program. And it's a really cool experience to go through, because you're at the table, and they don't put all CEOs together, and they don't put all the CFOs together. They intentionally mix everybody up to encourage you to work truly as a team toward focusing on how are we going to resolve some of these community issues that we're seeing in our communities and beyond. And it's just a really cool experience to know that the purpose of going in there is to have everybody walk in as equals. Yeah. And I think that's really important with leadership, because, the CEO doesn't necessarily have the right answer, or the best answer in the room. A lot of times when we start collaborating on things in our own organization, we'll get a group of 5, 6, 7 people together, and in the end we have this incredible idea, and we'll be like, whose idea was that? And nobody even knows, because it ends up being a combination of 6 different ideas, or one person's idea spun off of somebody else's idea. And I just think that's a really cool experience. And so I think it's making sure that people at the table truly have passion around whatever the issue is you're discussing, and then suspending whatever the titles are, because it really doesn't matter.
I spent a lot of time in non-named, non-title leadership roles over the years. And I'm a firm believer that leadership can come from any position, any space. Doesn't have to come from a particular organization or institution or within the hierarchy of those things. So when I took this job, and this job has that president and CEO title, and not just our staff, but other community partners, I don't put weight in titles, and that is not a sign of disrespect. And I've like dealt with that kind of question before, but I do think that there's a little bit of a leveling of the playing field that creates like an open generative space that's of high value. That said, what I realize that a lot of people know my title, whether I said it or not, and that holds me back in some of those spaces and is a thing to like actually navigate around. But I also realize that other people, the notion of like the power of titles is such a deeply held societal value that like it's really hard to overcome how someone else thinks about you or a title or you with a title. And it took me your point around like speaking last at staff meetings. I've gotten very good at that over the years, but it took me a while to realize that it did not matter that I said, I've got an idea. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm going to give you the idea. And then I literally, if I spoke first, they couldn't overcome that. Yeah. And that was because some of that's about self-awareness, but also some of that is just more about awareness of how other people perceive power hierarchy, titles, positions. And it took me a while to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a hard thing to learn because, when you're put in the leadership role, sometimes, depending on what leadership you've grown up around, right? Like you see that as the role that has all the answers and all the right answers. And so you have to eventually learn that if you speak first, then it's over.
Yeah. That part.
Yeah. I played it out in a leadership training a few weeks ago. We were talking about, I don't remember what the subject was, but, I had said, okay, let's talk about this situation that happened with this member. This member called, they wanted, they had like a bump on their credit and they wanted us to fix their credit. Like, what would you guys do? And so they all went around and they talked about what they did. And I said, well, I received the ultimate phone call from this member and I had to make a decision. And I said, what decision do you guys think I made? And they're like, oh, there's no way you would have fixed that. And I said, I made the decision to do it. And they were all like, what? And then they came up with literally like 10 excuses why it was okay that I did that. And I finally came back and said, okay, so I actually didn't do that. And let me explain to you why I didn't do that. And they were like, well, and I said, but see, you guys they were all starting the same page. Like, that was not okay to do. We should not do this. We can't, if we do this for one member, why wouldn't we do it for all members? But then when you heard the CEO did it, they all could come up with excuses why it was okay. And so it was interesting to kind of flip them on. I probably didn't explain that very well. And it wasn't even intentional. It was like an example that came up and I was like, oh, I'm going to get them real good. And I did.
And she really got a couple people mad.
Yeah, there were a few people that were like, I completely disagree with your decision, Jen. And let me tell you why. And I was so proud of them because they weren't, and not that the others were afraid to push back, because I don't think anybody's afraid to push back on me. But they were definitely influenced because I was the CEO and I said, well, and they were like, well, we knew you must have had a good reason for making that decision, but is there really a good reason? Yeah. And it played out really, really well in our leadership training that we were doing.
I love that. And it was during a training.
Yeah.
That helped.
Our full leadership
feels less gotcha than like just gotcha in the hallway conversation.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yep. That's, I think, so that's a great way to think about that question because I do experience that, like the collaborative leadership perspective of what it looks like to lead. And you guys, you're always in those spaces. And you've always navigated them well. So I was curious if you had any.
Some are easier than others.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think if you truly believe that everybody at the table is in it for the right reason and they really want to solve things, then, maybe the pace will be slower or faster than what you had hoped. But like when you're working with a collaborative group, you just have to kind of reset your expectations.
I've got a question for your marketing, your chief marketing officer.
Okay. Show them off the hot seat.
So it's about, I mean, you're doing it right now. To some extent, you're already displaying it. But the work that CCU is involved in, that you are responsible for storytelling, literally sharing those stories in different places, not just social media and not just in your e-newses. I've seen you do it like at the trade shows. And there's a lot of ways that you share your story. How do you convey those stories of partnership and community, like in your brand, in your kind of like official spaces? What's your strategy around that? And can you share without it being a trade secret?
If there's anything about community, is we are super transparent and we're always willing to share. So that's just a hallmark of who we are. I guess I would say that because of our culture and kind of embracing, the fact that we like to have fun, we work hard, we're doing impactful work, we're mission aligned, those types of things help those stories really bubble up to the top because it's very genuine. Like we're not making something up and be like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just, have this great impact but we're like, remember yesterday this happened and it was really impactful for this family. And so let's talk to them and see if we can protect their identities, but also share that impact so other people know that this solution exists. And so I think we've tried to capture some of that. Like at trade shows and things, we like to have fun. Our employees are not going to go and participate willingly for a 5 or 6 hour event if I don't, make it some fun, infused into the day. And so I think that our employees love to have fun and it just comes out from them. And I think that draws people. People love high energy, positivity, high impact, thoughtful experiences. And I think that they get that. I'm not going to say every time, we've fallen down before, but I think that if they're looking for a genuine interaction with somebody that cares about the outcome, they're going to find that most of the time when they're interacting with our team. Yeah. And I think that makes my job of kind of storytelling impact stories easier because I don't have to say, well, you're only going to have this good experience if you're working with Jen.
Yeah.
I can say, walk into any of our branches. You're going to get a very similar experience wherever you go, and we can help you do this. Or if you like self-service, here's the ways to self-serve and have this great impact. But I do think that we are very top of mind thinking about what is the impact going to be on our members and our community and our staff. And so we think of it with those three lenses, every decision we make, everything along, our mission statement. And so it just makes it really easy to find those moments.
I love that. Jen, anything you want to add?
I think she said it perfectly.
She did.
Yeah,
it's almost like it's what she does.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I know. It's weird.
Had to give you a.
I hired her for a reason.
I know. I was like, I know she'll. Well, because you guys, you're just like your brand and the storytelling you do within your brand is always featuring your employees as like humans, not just employees. Like that's never the way you guys come across, and it is clear that you all have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we have a fantastic team. I mean, we're very intentional about who we hire. You don't just have to fog a mirror. Like we want people that are real, that are passionate about the work we do, that want to have an impact. And so we're intentional about who we're hiring and who we're bringing onto our team. And we want them to be their true selves. And I think that's really important. We don't want somebody to show up just to, be who we want them to be. We want them to be able to bring their full selves and their authenticity.
And finances are hard. And we see some really heartbreaking scenarios. And that's a lesson in resiliency by itself, because, some of our team that are working with somebody that's having, lost their job, lost their child, lost their car, whatever the situation is, all of those are hard. And in the moment they seem humongous. Yeah. And so making sure that our team is equipped to either share a personal story or share a success story of I saw somebody in the same situation 3 months ago and they're in a whole new place. Let me help you, And so those stories can be really emotional and, take some resiliency, and it's not for everyone. Yeah. But like Jen said, we are identifying people that align with our mission and that they're ready for the hard days and the happy days and, willing to work hard for others. And because of that, we have a really strong team.
Let's talk about thriving.
I love to thrive.
I know you do. When we talk about thriving, we're really talking about what happens when people and families and communities have what they need to move forward and to kind of be at their best. You guys talk about community a lot. It's not just in your name. It is in your name, but it's not just in your name. It's in your values and it shows up. So from your vantage point, what are some of the early signs that a household and or community is moving kind of from surviving to thriving? What are some of those indicators that you're looking at? And what financial think markers or tools might be part of that kind of storyline for them?
I guess my initial thought is that we, similar to our Bridges Out of Poverty model, we're looking for the strengths and the assets first. Let's not talk about the deficits. Let's talk about
What's going right.
What's going right, what the hurdles you've got already crossed, and are those stable and secure so that we can go to the next level. And so I think that, that takes conversation and relationship and a deeper dive. But I think that's where, sometimes you just have to shine the light for someone to see wow, look how far you've already gone.
Yeah.
And I know that it's still straight uphill from here, but we're right behind you.
But you're middle of the hill now.
But you made it all of this way, you know, and I think that's a big piece of it. And for specific benchmarks, I think showing up and partnering with, Strength in LA and other, local employers, like livable wage is a huge one, helping people manage their benefits. As the Community Cornerstone and the Financial Navigator are inserted inside of local businesses, there's some employers that are offering amazing benefit packages, and folks aren't even taking advantage of that. They have no idea what they have, and I'm not pointing fingers at HR people or employee onboarding, but it's a lot. It's a fire hose when you get hired in a new role.
8-hour orientation day where it's here's a 60-page manual and 15 different benefits, and you should probably take health insurance for sure. The rest you'll figure out later is a real shared experience that a lot of people have.
Hard.
Yeah. So I think it's making sure that, when you come to somebody and you can just have that conversation of I don't know what to do. Okay, well, let's look and see. Do you have employment? Do you have benefits? Does your partner have benefits in your household? And it just kind of helping folks understand their full scenario, because lots of times, our team can find, for lack of a better word, a windfall. Did you know that you could opt in or opt out? For that matter. And it changes what your benefits are. And because a lot of folks, especially, we don't see it as much anymore, but you took this job when you were 22 and
you didn't care about life insurance.
You haven't looked at your benefit package and you've been there for 5 years. You might be in a complete life situation that's different 5 years later, and that's
such a good point.
I think there's just lots of those types of things, and it comes down to capacity. There's a lot of businesses that don't have a dedicated benefits person.
I mean, so for fun, just to reflect that back, in Androscoggin County, 69% of businesses have 10 employees or less. 66% of our members have 10 employees or less. And as somebody who just crossed the 10 employee threshold a year ago for our own organization, it was a reach goal for us to get somebody on our team that was an HR specialist who knew the stuff, who knew the benefits, who could answer the questions, who could provide who had the time, and up until literally June of 2025, so very recently, our person who had the HR role also did 3 other jobs. When you're in that small of a business, you're wearing multiple hats. And I'll have a vulnerable leader moment with you, and I don't think I'll get myself in trouble for this one, but I know the learning curve for me, learning about my benefits, how they're used, how to share them with an employee, and that being one of my responsibilities that fell to me was my own learning curve that took me years of understanding the benefits, when to leverage them, how that would be useful, when to point it out to an employee, when to revisit it to an employee. That's not something I learned on my first day either. And that's a real scenario for hundreds and thousands of businesses across Androscoggin County where they don't have, that opportunity. And it's crazy. My partner works for a global company that has 100 and some odd people in their HR department, and they deploy different people for different benefits. And there's a specialist who knows all the answers to the thing. And he uses less of his benefits than me, because even that scale of is like almost less accessible in some ways.
Overwhelming,
For sure. Like you need an HR department directory to figure out who to ask the question to. At least here, there's one person, and they know who to go
and
ask. The
We're
question
finally
to.
there too. I mean, we have 42 employees, and we've only had a dedicated HR person for the last 6-7 years.
Right.
So, like, even organizations our size,
Yeah.
it's people wearing multiple hats, and
And sometimes it's just knowing that you need to ask the question, do I have this benefit?
Yeah.
And
Is there a
sometimes-
benefit for this?
Right. Is there a benefit
app for
for
that?
this? And, I'm not saying that the human resources people need to know it inside and out. That's why you have trusted partners that provide those
vendors.
benefits, because they probably have a helpline. They probably have
Totally.
a website. They probably, but
They do.
you might not know how to access
Yeah.
that if you don't ask the question. And if you're not even considering benefits as
Yeah.
one of your potential supports, and sometimes that's just how simple the conversation has to be. What have you checked?
Yeah.
And let's check these 5 other things.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be the door that opens,
kind of back to the original question, I think that thriving, we work with such a diverse population, and even just looking at our employees, they're, each person one to the next is just so incredibly different that thriving means something different to each of them.
Yeah.
So like thriving for a woman who, is getting out of a domestic violence situation might be finally getting her own bank account.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Finally her first own savings and checking account. That could be thriving for one person. And for somebody else, it's getting their first car or buying their first home or building credit. And, so that it means different things to different people. And I think that, so when you ask the question of like, how do you know when the community is thriving? Like, it's a really challenging question. I think back to your reference of looking at, how do you know if the chamber's thriving? You have to look at whether our full membership is thriving and the community's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways we are.
Yeah.
But each person is different. So
Yeah.
it's hard to measure that.
No, it's well said. I would say one way to think about that is thriving is when you have the resources and can exercise the choice to do the thing that makes you whole and healthy. And that makes space for that individual need and approach and strength-based approach. But I think there is something to the fact that like thriving means that there's the ability for it to look different for different people.
Yep.
Otherwise, like a standard to like everybody has 3 meals a day and they look like this is like, that's not thriving.
Yeah.
That's
the national,
fed, but it's not thriving, right?
The National Credit Union Foundation talks a lot about financial well-being, and they
Yeah.
define it as having capacity to make decisions, control over your decisions, and the ability to make choices
That.
over your decisions,
Yeah.
right? So it's not, whether you made the right decision or the wrong decision, like, did you have a choice
Yeah.
in how you made that decision?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you look at financial well-being. So
Yeah.
we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I think it does have to look different for everybody, but I think it is about choice and about the access to be able to choose as well. Beyond growth and membership or loans, how do you know when your work is like contributing to thriving in whatever individual way that looks like? What's your marker for? And I know you guys pay attention to like not just growth metrics and traditional stuff. Like you are, for all the ways that you are a non-traditional finance institution in beautiful community focused ways, you're like also a finance institution. You are fully compliant, you play by all the rules. And so I know that you are kind of always minding, bottom lines and growth, and it's how you are able to invest in all the ways that you are not traditional and wonderfully embedded in community. And so how do you guys take care of your own ability to thrive?
I think I sometimes refer to it as heart work, similar to hard work, but heart work, because, we have a real niche of serving the underserved, and that is hard. Than mainstream traditional. Like, we could open our doors and say, everybody with piles of money, just come in here and we'll take care of your deposits and we'll give you loans. And, that's pretty mainstream. That's pretty easy. Still has regulations, still has a purpose. We still do that for lots of people. But when somebody comes to you and they're like, I have these 5 barriers to my finances, can you help me overcome some or all of them, and kind of work through a complex process while they're still juggling all of these other things over here that may or may not allow them to follow through on this agreement of helping them overcome the barriers. And so we see a lot of folks that are making great strides and they're hitting these goals, and we celebrate every single victory that we can. And then we also see folks that come up and then slide back down and come up and slide back, and they continue to have because life.
Yeah.
And random curveball comes over and hits them from here, and so I think that's where we have to celebrate all of the small victories and the big victories. I mean, when we look at ourselves across credit unions in the state of Maine, and we look at that all the time, we're in the top 10 list, as I like to call it, for a lot of these key metrics with growth and membership and loans and deposits and all of these different things. But what those don't tell is some of those stories of like the person that got their very first account ever, or the person that got denied opening an account because they went to 7 institutions before they found Community Credit Union, because we don't hold this past behavior against them, for however long it is. And so, those are some of the strategic decisions that we've made to remove some of those barriers so that we can, obviously, we're very good stewards of our members' money. And so we're not going to take unnecessary risk, but we also realize that some of our members, they want to do business with an organization that is helping people with second chances. And so that's kind of who we are and what our mission is. And so we don't want to disconnect from that work just because of today's economic curveballs are coming at you 5 at a time,
Yeah.
So the program I referenced earlier that our full senior leadership team's been through, the Development Educator Program, one of the exercises they do in that program is they split the room in half. And one group has to argue why people are more important, and the other group has to argue why profit is more important. And what you find through that exercise is that they're both important, right? Credit unions are not-for-profits, so I think that's really important for people to know. But that doesn't mean we can't earn a profit and that we shouldn't earn a profit. We have to earn a profit in order to be able to offer the products and services that we offer. But there's no point in having the products and services if we're not creating the right products and services to serve the people. And so I think for me, I don't have a financial background. I came up through marketing. I understand the financial side of the credit union. I understand the balance sheet and the income statement, and all of those things are really important. But at the end of the day, it's about people for me. Our former CFO, dear friend of mine, when we first started working together as CEO and CFO, I was always focused on the people and she was always focused on the profit. And she finally said, Jen, when you retire from this credit union someday, what do you want your legacy to be? And I said, what do you want yours to be? And she's like, I want to know that I left this credit union in the best financially sound position I could leave it in. And I said, well, that's not what I want my legacy to be. I want to know that I made a difference in people's lives. And so for me, I know that our organization is thriving when we can get up every day and make a difference in somebody's life. Maybe it's an employee, maybe it's somebody in the community, maybe it's a member, maybe it's somebody we don't even know that we've touched their life. I feel incredibly fortunate that I get to wake up every single day and do that. And sometimes I don't even know that I'm doing that. It's just, and so when employees have a hard day, I'll say, well, what have you done to make a difference in somebody's life today? And they can always find at least one example, which brings them back to okay, maybe it wasn't the greatest day, but I still achieved our mission and I still had a positive impact on somebody's life. And so for me, when you ask, how do I know our organization is thriving? We're making a difference.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing that all the time.
I love that. I know, right? Betsy's pointing at Jen being like, see, it does make your job easier, storytelling.
Makes you want to go to work every day.
I listen, are you hiring? I'm looking for, I've got a new gig that I
think it makes a difference. And, whether you're the janitor coming in and cleaning up or you're, our receptionist is our director of first impressions. If you're a member rep and you're, handling
Lorraine's
those
incredible.
teller line
Sorry, I'm giving myself away as the Pine Street location.
Yeah. It doesn't
Lorraine.
matter what role you're in. Every single employee is making a difference in people's lives every single day. Because sometimes the difference is just saying good morning to somebody, and that is what they needed to hear, and it makes a world of difference in their life.
So as we get ready to close up, you guys are giving me the best segue ever to the question we like to ask as our parting question. If someone was coming up to you and saying, maybe it's a younger version of yourself, maybe it's tomorrow's leader, and they are saying, I want to show up in community and make a difference. I like want to lead. You guys inspire me. What is the advice that you give them? The like one golden nugget that you give them that you hope they carry with them? Doesn't have to fit on a bumper sticker. It's not an entire book.
All the bumper stickers were rolling.
Yeah, I mean, like, we'll take a bumper sticker. Don't get me wrong. If it's a good one, we'll print it.
I guess simply find something you're passionate about and show up.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you have to have some passion around it in order to truly be able to lead.
Yeah.
Or learn passion around it eventually over time. But you have to show up.
Yeah.
So I know that's really simple and
No, but
maybe not
showing
the
up-
answer you're looking for. But
just show up's a really important piece.
Pick one thing that you're passionate about and show up. And like Betsy was saying earlier, you might sit there for the first 3 or 4 meetings and say nothing except for introduce yourself. But over time, you'll be more comfortable with the group and you'll figure out, what your role is. And
Well, and it's how you build trust, too,
Yeah.
right? Like the showing up. Because it doesn't matter if you talk about it. Honestly, it doesn't even matter. Money's nice, and we love it when people throw money and at problems and help. Thanks. It's not as meaningful as showing up, and it doesn't build trust.
Yep.
Yeah, showing up's key. What about you?
I guess mine is about willingness to commit, which I think is kind of like what Jen said, only in a different way. Like, whatever that commit is, are you committing your time? Are you committing your energy or your ideas, your innovation, your partnerships, bringing other people to the table? Is it monetary? But I think it is, if you don't have passion for it, like you're going to hit the wall, but if you have to have that willingness to commit. And I think being really honest, like if I can throw 110% at this, but I've got 18 months and then I'm going to move on to something else. If you know yourself and you can't stick to something for the long game, like be super transparent about that and say, I am one heck of a volunteer and you got me for the next however long it is.
Yeah.
I'm committed and I will show up. I will do the things, but just know that it's coming to an end, And so I think that, I think those kind of boundaries can really help like our young leaders know that they can make a big difference. They can get a lot of learning out of it. And they don't have to be the secretary of the Turner Ridge Riders for 16 straight years. You know what I mean? So like, it's just that.
Hypothetically, or
but it's just those kinds of things that sometimes you don't think about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
when you're passionate about something, you get into it, and then, but be real about what your commitment level and timeline is going to be.
super powerful. Mark, any
Yes.
lingering question,
Sure.
key thought for these amazing ladies?
Yes. I just wanted to mention, too,
nervous.
how...
when Mark starts talking, you just never know what's
and his
coming.
questions have gotten me more than once.
how often has the term showing up been mentioned on this podcast?
Listen,
Are you
because
gonna
we're
be
in all of
tallying
them.
that?
We should have been
might.
telling them. I should have like a whiteboard and just be like after folks leave, showing up, which it like fundamentally is at the root of what both of you are talking about. Two really important different aspects, but showing up matters. It is 9 out of 10 podcasts.
Yeah.
Is like our guests are saying
Yeah.
that, like multiple guests on different podcasts. So hard to put a number to it, but it's fundamental.
It is.
It's like, and if you can't show up, don't say you're going to. Go back to Betsy's commitment.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I mean, I think it's, that's what leading looks like. I think people, just to go full circle to the front end where we talked about titles and stuff, but like, it doesn't mean anything if you're not showing up.
Right.
And in real ways.
Jen, who was your role model or mentor?
Gosh, I've had several throughout my time. I think somebody that I really looked up to from kind of a community aspect was Dick Gleason. Dick was one of my first jobs out of college, and he really taught me what it meant to show up and taught me what it meant to make a commitment. And if you make a commitment, like you have to be there. And, there were times in my younger years where I'd said I'd be there and then I didn't show up because something else came up. And he and I had some conversations about that. And I learned a lot from those experiences. And I think finding my voice in the community, somebody I think of is Mary LaFontaine. Her and I served on the chamber board together, and we chaired the Education and Workforce Development Committee together, and I knew nothing about it when I jumped onto that committee. And, she really taught me how to find my voice in some of those conversations.
Yeah.
Love that.
Betsy.
Mary will love hearing that.
Same question.
Ooh, same question. Well, I guess my initial thought is my parents. They were small business owners, so I was, early employee. So you did show up.
Yeah, not optional.
Yeah.
It goes right there with dinner
you're
and
just,
housing.
dragged down the stairs because we owned a small general store and we lived upstairs, so there was no escaping.
Yeah.
You got to work every day because you worked in the building, and so
It's like Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, it is.
similar. And they worked really, really hard. And I think that we grew up, sort of on the edge, like we were business owners. So people thought that, we had lots of money.
Swimming in the cash.
Yeah. But as I hear the stories of, my parents also had jobs outside of running their business because that's how you infuse cash when things get lean.
Yeah.
And so, tons of respect as I've worked through my professional career and noticed oh, this is hard. I do have a fleet of vehicles now, and I can't imagine how my parents did that with 3 teenage daughters and running a business. And, so my mom supervised people, and she was always about firm, fair, consistent. She's like, you want people to be able to know what they can expect. And, so that's really kind of informed, how I try to supervise, different projects and people, because I don't want them to be surprised. Oh gosh, is it Jekyll or is it Hyde that showed up today? You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I have that same firm fare, and I guess I said I've been really lucky. I've served on several boards with Jen, and then she recruited me over to the credit union. So I've been able to kind of, even though she's younger than me, I've been able to kind of model after some of the leadership lessons that she's got from different people. And I think that we're really lucky here, especially in the Lewiston Auburn area, because there's lots of people that are willing to model great leadership skills. And if you can connect with those folks and they can share their, tidbits and their little nuggets through board engagement and other, collaborative efforts, just feel really, really proud to have, been able to, sponge up some of those pieces.
You guys are amazing. Jen and Betsy, thank you both for the leadership, care, and intentionality that you bring to Community Credit Union and to this region. I genuinely mean that, and I've seen that and have benefited as a community member and as a mom, and so keep doing what you're doing. To our listeners, thanks for spending another day with us here at Build, Lead, Thrive. If any part of today resonated with you, I hope that you like this. I hope that you subscribe it, whatever platform that you're on, and I hope that you send this episode along with someone else who also cares about communities and how they're built when access, leadership, and values align. We'll see you next time.
We're gonna get to know you. We're gonna talk it out. We're gonna get to know you and what you're all about. We're gonna get to know just what makes you feel alive. We're gonna get to know how you build, lead, and thrive.
Build, Lead, and Thrive. Voices of the Androscoggin.